You're tuned into the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week I've got Cory Gilday on with me. He is the dynamic strength and conditioning leader at Texas A&M International University. We're going to dive right in and talk about all that he's been doing with all the sports at the university and then some. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram at Rocky_Snyder and enjoy the show. So you're down in Texas. You're up in the Pacific Northwest, huh? We're up in Portland area?
I was in the Portland, Oregon area for 20 years, Vancouver, Washington to be specific, and now I'm in Laredo, Texas. So
that's a bit different.
Well, what happened is that my transition went from, I think a lot of college coaches leave college coaching to go own a facility. My resume, I've been a private personal trainer to Shaquille O'Neal. I've worked in the tactical realm. I was actually one of the very first POTUF strength coaches back in 2009. I was a director of athletic performance at Concordia University in Portland, but the school closed while I was doing that and running my facility. And I just got to the point where I was just done with the parents. I was done with trying to justify with parents why I'm doing something comparatively to the some other
what they're seeing on the internet or something, how they're comparing it to somebody else.
Right. It's like, well, what if this guy's doing this? And you're like, I don't care. His stuff is wrong. So.
Right on. And you've been with the NSCA for how long?
Been in NSCA CSCS since 2002.
Right on. So you're close to being one of the OGs there then.
I don't know about that.
Okay, maybe 20 years a little bit later. But I got to tell you, Cory, and we're just going to keep this flowing. There's no need to have any official introductions here. Your photo on the Texas A&M website is a little different than how you're looking right now.
I've lost 45 pounds.
Man, you look good. Sincerely. Wow. So Texas is good to you. A little hotter weather down there, just sweating it out or what?
Well, my family's not here currently, and so I've been able to kind of like focus on my nutrition and going through it. And I kind of got diagnosed. I was in the Marine Corps. I played college sports, and my ankles always kind of bothered me. And as I was gotten older, it bothered me more and more. And I finally got diagnosed bone on bone, and in June, realizing, okay, I can't run anymore, but I need to lose weight. So I've been busting my ass, and I'm actually trying to get down to my old college weight, which I'm about 15 pounds away from. So
fantastic. I love it. That's great. And so you have spent quite a bit of time in armed forces, Air Force, Special Ops.
That's right. Yeah, I trained them 2 separate times. The 125th Special Tactics Squadron, there's 2 military contracts. There's the H2F, which we heard all about during the NSCA, and one you don't hear a lot about because the contracts are more run by KBR. Another one is the POTUF contracts. Usually why those don't get talked about, because usually they get a coach in there and you never get them out. They're there for, first of all, they pay a lot more than H2F does. H2F pays 55, POTUF pays 80 to 90,000, and so there's very few of those positions out there, and but you're working in a smaller environment. H2F, you're working with a battalion, or at the very least, you're working with a company, which is huge. With the POTUF program, I'm working with 28 guys. I'm working with a team essentially.
Wow.
So it was really very manageable. So. And
how long did you do that for?
So I had 2 separate contracts, one from 2009-ish to and then I had again a contract again from 2013 and 14-ish, 15, yeah. So, and then Exos actually took over that contract because I was doing a direct GSA contract at that point.
Got it.
Sometimes you lose your positions not because of the quality with you, but someone underbids you.
So I'm curious. I'm going to ask a fairly broad question, but looking for specificity underlying it. Like, what was your primary goal in working with special ops in the Air Force, and how did you achieve that?
Well, so to be honest, the first time I got the contract, it was I happened to train the E9 of the unit, his wife. She was a physical therapist, and they were saying they were looking for, and this is at a time when they could just use their black. A lot of special operations have what's called the black credit card. It's got like a giant limit on it, and they can do whatever they want with it. And they hired me directly that way. I had a facility, and they knew my background. They were like, okay, we want you to do it. So, and then what happened is that they paid for it. Unfortunately, that E9 got into some trouble, so they kind of put stuff on the back burner. Then when it came up for renewal again for actual government bidding, and they're actually going to bid out the contract, I got asked to be the subcontractor for the actual government for the GSA that won the award. Our company will bid on it and then look for a coach to do it. And they said, I know he's in town, pay it. The pay was phenomenal. The pay was $65 an hour, and it was a guaranteed 20 hours a week, but it was really only about 10 hours a week worth of work. So, you show up for 10 hours, get paid for 20.
Not bad. Not a bad gig.
Not a bad day.
So give me a little background story of your career path, the sports that you competed in. What intrigued you about strength conditioning? Why have you followed this path through your career?
So my background is I played baseball, football in college, played a little bit of minor league baseball, Marine Corps. And I was one of those guys, I was that chubby athletic kid, even going into collegiate sports. And I realized I needed to transition my body for myself. So I actually was a history major, declared like day one, freshman year, I was going to be history because I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a coach. And I didn't even know what exercise science was. And I got exposed to these classes, and I'm going to start taking these classes for me, not for anyone else, but for how do I make myself a better athlete? And I started, at the time, I went to Central College in Iowa, which is actually an NSCA, CAA, CSA accredited school.
Nice.
But didn't have any strength coach, anything. And so I was just trying to teach myself how to, what to do, how to do, what I should be doing for lifting. And so I just kind of changed my body doing that way. And I just started getting a passion for exercise science. And I said, okay, I'll be a double major. And then after my military career, I ended up being I'll be a trainer. I didn't know. I had my CSCS, so I'll just be a trainer. So I ended up in Bend, Oregon, and Gold's Gym, and that's kind of how my career started. And I kind of just started talking to everyone and working on stuff. And I ended up in Portland and worked for 24 Hour Fitness, and ended up doing good at that job. And luckily 24 had a deal with different athletes, and they had a deal with Shaquille, and they were looking for a trainer to train them. And I ended up being selected for that to the company, and that's how I got to train Shaq. So
was he still actively playing the NBA? Had he retired?
Yeah, that was his last year with the Lakers, 2003.
Last year. Okay, now normally with the Zealous podcast, we don't bring up specific players or anything, but in this case, I can't help but ask. I've got to know. I mean, Shaq is just a monster. He's such an incredible athlete for the size he is. What was your primary focus with him?
Well, so an athlete like that, and I'll put this on. I love Shaq to death. He's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. And he knows I say this about him. He's a little bit of a pain in the ass when it comes to being a client, but he's one of the best human beings to walk the planet. Like, I would trust him with, like, anyways. He was dealing with his big toe not functioning, only having 10 degrees of extension when you need 15 to jump. He was dealing with core dysfunction issues. And so, and of course, I had a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I was 25 years old. I had not got my master's degree yet. And so I had guys like Alex McKechnie and Mike Clark and all these guys trying to chirp at me, telling me what to do. And I was trying to stay the course, go, I know what I'm doing here. I can get this done. Shaq was just out of shape. He just needed to move. And I was trying to find solutions for him that would be fun for him to do, because, train him like a normal pro athlete where, hey, we're going to do this, wasn't going to work. We couldn't just put a Jilly hurdles out and put speed bands out and do lifting. It wasn't going to work. Initially, they put me in a sports performance lab to train him, like a velocity type place. And okay, we're going to leave it like private to you. And I looked at this guy after talking to him for an hour and a half. I go, no, we need to go to a small gym that has some people around, because he needs people around him, normal people he can talk to. In Orlando, we were in Orlando, Florida when we trained him, and people tend to give him pretty wide berths and you give him respect to space. So I moved him to a small gym called Sports Club. We started working out. I will take full credit. I'm the one who got him into jiu-jitsu. He's a big jiu-jitsu guy. I was like, how do I create conditioning this athlete when I don't want to pound on his feet? We had one of the owners of the gym let me cut off the back heel plate on the elliptical so we could get some cardio in, so he could get his foot in. Yeah. But the elliptical's boring. So we found a jiu-jitsu instructor, and we would be, okay, you're going to roll for 60 minutes 3 times a week. And that was how I incorporated some conditioning with him. So we just said, I told the jiu-jitsu instructor, you just have to roll for an hour with minimal breaks. How do I get him in shape that way? And it worked, because he was enjoying it. He loved doing stuff. I had a master jiu-jitsu instructor saying, hey, don't lock out his ankles. Don't lock out his wrists. You can tap him out. He needs to learn how to mobility, but don't lock out those joints. And I found it was a pretty, the first 6 weeks we had our biggest success. We lost like 26 pounds. And then unfortunately, he had a personal chef at his house, and that guy quit. And I think he only lost another 10 pounds after that guy left, because he was going out and eating and doing that. But we still lost 40. We lost 40 something pounds. So
phenomenal. And I'm wondering who you paired him up when it was time for grappling, when it was time for practice.
Well, it was one-on-one. It was one-on-one with it. We hired one of Gracie's students, and it was one-on-one. I would hop in there sometimes because I have a little jiu-jitsu background, just to keep him moving. Now, he's got long levers, and I get, it's kind of hard. It's like wrestling an octopus.
Right. Well, that must have been a great experience for both of you. And so you were up in the Northwest, and you were, the interesting thing, I look on your LinkedIn page, and you've got a really cool title underneath, which is Dynamic Strength and Conditioning Leader. Let's touch upon that, because usually it's strength conditioning coach, performance coach, but you changed it up, Dynamic Strength and Conditioning Leader. What's that all about?
Well, I really pride myself in trying to empower people under me to be successful. I'm a little bit of a control freak, but that also means I want to train my assistants and people under me to replace me. I've always learned that I want people above and below me. I want to know the person above me's job, and I want the person below me to know my job. And I want them to be able to, I want my whole team to grow. So that's always been my thing, is like, here I have an assistant and I have interns, and I'm trying to teach these. I ask a lot of my interns to put them out of their comfort zone because I want them to grow. I'm constantly volunteering my time in the exercise science classes here because I want to teach them, like, hey, let's go beyond what you just learned in biomechanics and how does that work? How is this actually going to apply to what you want to do? I spoke last spring at we have a CSCS prep course, and I go, what do you guys want to do? I want to be a college coach. Okay, who's going to do internships? And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about GAs? They have no idea. It's like, come intern here. Come. It's not going to be easy. And I don't like to sugarcoat it like guys like, oh, it's a great life. I said, do it now so when you can live on ramen and live on a couch. Don't get bills and stuff like that. Eventually you're going to make money and you're going to be fine, but don't assume you're just going to make money right away.
So you want these people under you to be able to replace you. So
right. I would like, if something happened to me, I would be confident in someone who I've trained. Like, I'm constantly doing development with my assistant. I'm like, how is your reading? What are you reading? Show me your program. How are you doing that? How would you address that? Like, I'll ask questions off the top of my cuff. Like, hey, talk to me about the tier system. Talk to me about conjugate. Talk to me, did you see what Mike Boyle said? What's your latest podcast? Constantly learning to understand. And I don't believe there's a wrong answer in exercise. I really don't. If you can defend it and give me a scientifically based answer, there are so many right answers in strength and conditioning. It's only a wrong answer if you can't justify it, if you just pick something random. Okay, that's a wrong answer. It may be right contextually, but if you can't justify it, it's the wrong answer. So I really tell people that that's always been my goal, is I want to replace you because I want to be in charge of it, growing an entire staff, and I want to be able to make the big decisions of, like, where are we going as a department, rather where are we going as a team? Like, how are we developing things?
And so with these individuals that you have, I'll say, under you and your team, and we're not talking about duplicating you, but there's some elements of that hold true. What aspects of your approach would you like to see with them? Aside from the curiosity of knowledge, which you've already expressed, are there other things that you want to have them imbue, that you want to impart upon them, that this is what we're looking for?
Well, one thing I try to teach all my coaches and my interns is look at how the body moves in coordination. I get new interns in and they go, I know how to teach a squat. I can teach a clean. I go, what muscles did it work? Okay. What does it teach? And they look at me and they're like, what do you mean? What does it teach? How does that translate to sport? Like, I'm trying to get, because like I say, I'm a sports performance guy. I'm a USAWA coach, but I am a sports performance coach. I train athletes in the gym setting or on the field to become better at their sport. So I don't care if maybe that's not the best Olympic technique for an Olympic pattern, but it's great carry over to the field. That's all I care about. I could give a crap if it's not ideal kettlebell form or that's not the protocol for kettlebell. I don't care. I know that movement pattern will elicit me the greatest response for my athlete. That's my job. My job isn't to be the best lifter. Like Kenny Powers, I play real sport. We
yes.
want. And so I'm trying to teach these kids and the younger coaches is like, what does the athlete need to be successful in their sport, and how can you address those issues with exercise? I'm trying to take them, like, they know, even if some are really proficient in exercise, they don't really know how to use those tools to address those problems.
So taking them out of the rigidity and the confinement of the typical strength-based lifts and exercises that we'll commonly think of in a gym, and having them observe the athlete in motion to discern patterns and train the patterns. That's what you're saying.
Right, and I'm real big on neural grooving, and I constantly, I mean, you ask my athletes here, I probably reference Karate Kid at least once a week, talk about neural grooving. I do a bunch of neural grooving when I teach my Olympic lifts. I do neural, like we think the baseball team is switching, they're in off season, we're switching phases next week. And Friday, today was kind of not a throwaway day, but an extra day. And I really didn't feel like throwing like just a basic lift at him. We went through kettlebell patterning, and part of the warm up was a lot of crawling and rolling and stuff and things like that, because that warm up fit doing Turkish sit ups and rolls and arm braces to kind of get connection with with their ability with the ground. And I had an intern and go, this is why I'm doing the rolling. I'm building that kinesthetic connection with the ground, so that when they get in the exercise, they've already kind of moved in that pattern and warmed up in that pattern. They're going to get a better connection with it. And they're like, oh, okay. And I don't know if they understood what I was talking about, but, and I even explained, I make them take their shoes off so they have a better connection with the ground rather than being in their shoes all the time. I know a lot of college coaches don't want to pull shoes off. I pull shoes off. I'll do whatever I can do to get good connection with my athletes. So,
what sports are you currently overseeing?
All of them. So at the Division II level, that we don't have football here. So we have 11 NC2A Division II sports. So we have 175 athletes. I am in charge. I train every single team. I'm the direct supervisor of every single team. I have an assistant and 2 interns, but I let my assistant directly handle cross country and softball at times, but I do the rest, and he assists me. So I program everything. So.
Wow, and with this programming, it's year round, or obviously there's going to be a break to some degree, but how do you break it up?
So, yeah, it's with NC2A sport programming, it's not like, it's almost like anything other. So we have, like, right now we're doing a basketball preseason. Baseball is deep in the off season. They won't be going into their preseason lifting until we're going to initial preseason in October here, November, and then immediate preseason in December, January, because they get on the field. Their first game is February for baseball. So I'm a big linear periodization guy. Not a big linear periodization. I do a lot of undulating.
Okay.
So how James Radcliffe at Oregon kind of pioneered that concept of, now we're constantly doing different characteristics. We're doing hypertrophy, we're doing power, we're doing max strength, and then we're going back to hypertrophy and conditioning. And we're undulating those patterns, and we're messing with volumes as we get into season with the volume, but we're still working on those characteristics. Like, what happens is the traditional linear periodization model, the block periodization, is designed for Olympic sport. It's designed for a small competition window. And most of these sports are 2-3 month long competition windows. So, like, and I heard a great, almost 10 years ago, by Robert Remedios, Coach Dose. He goes, we're not trying to get these athletes better for September 5th game. We're trying to get them better for the January 5th bowl game. And same thing here. We're trying to get these guys ready for playoffs, be in the best possible shape. So we'll work on max strength, and it's funny because they've had strength coaches here, but they haven't had a strong voice. So sometimes these head coaches have dictated the programming in the past, and now I'm going, hey, we're going to lift heavy day before the game, or sometimes game day. Some coaches have totally embraced it. Like, what do you mean we're lifting heavy? We don't want to get them tired. Can't we just do 20 reps, and trying to explain to them that the high rep is actually worse for them than the heavy rep? Our volleyball coach lets me do lifting activation 20 minutes before they go on court. Like,
oh, really?
Oh yeah, we were doing hang cleans. We were doing 80% hang cleans 20 minutes before they got on the court, and they're kicking the crap out of people. I remember the other team was watching them. They're doing a full lift, like we're squatting, we're cleaning, because it's part of their warm up. They don't have to warm. They'll go in, they warm up with me, boom, and they're on the court and they go into their ball skill. They're not doing the silly little. I mean, they'll go through their stuff and they're ready to rock and roll. And our coach is already like, we track it on GPS and Catapult. We're like, they're jumping higher than they've ever jumped before. They're feeling better. And also, I tell other coaches why you do it. I'm also getting one extra like dose of lifting in per week. They train with me on a dedicated lift twice a week and maybe get 2 micro sessions of the activation. So over the course of 4 years, the freshmen, sophomores are getting more lifting in. They're going to be stronger when they're juniors and seniors. And it's like built in this cultural effect that long term, I'm getting more lifts in too. And
are you doing like 75%, 80%, 1 or 2 sets, like prior to the game?
Right. Yeah. The boom, like, so like on Wednesday, our girls did 75%. They did 3 sets of 2 hang clean. Then they went into do single leg step up jumps, and they went into did rotational ball slams, and then they did 90-90 hip switches real quick, and then they did and they went through and they did quick lateral bounds, and they did 3 rounds. Whole thing took 15 minutes. They're a little light sweat going and down in the court.
Have you noticed a reduction in injury or injury mitigation?
Yes, we've already mitigated I wasn't here last fall, but my injury rate right now is about 15% down low.
Damn.
What? At Concordia, each year I reduced it 10% from the year before. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
By including these game day lifts?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other tools like velocity-based training probably is a big part of it.
Yeah, I literally just got we went with Bercheru, even though I'm a big fan of True Rep. Those guys in Arkansas are fantastic. Again, those guys are starting with a magnet now, and it's fantastic. But our Bercheru stuff, it really builds intent too. People go, oh, you can track everything. Well, the biggest thing with velocity thing is it tells people to move fast. Let's go. Let's move with intent. They think they're moving fast, they're not. So we're getting an instantaneous feedback. When we do vertical jumps, they jump on a jump mat so they can see where they're jumping and how far they're jumping. So getting constant feedback. It's just been a culture change because I bring all the sports science in here and trying to give tools for them to like understand. And some of the coaches are understanding. Some of our soccer program does activation, but they don't lift. The women's program doesn't lift during the season
at all.
New coach, no. But I have 3 I can see out on the floor right now for open gym are doing their optional program right now. But the men's program team does lift twice a week. So it's their brand new coaching staff. They're finding their way, and they trust me. They're learning. I think they're learning how their practice schedule flows first. And so I'm not throwing a fit about it yet. If it happens again next year, then I'll probably say something. So my women's soccer is the best lifting team during the off season. It's the best lifters by far.
Oh. What do you attribute? Yeah, what do you attribute that to?
The culture they have within the group.
Huh.
They get after it. Now, from a technical standpoint, women's volleyball has got the best technique because I think they have the greatest exposure.
Sure.
Then we have
and I think we're talking more precision in volleyball just in general, you know?
Yeah.
And it's that repetitive action, like you were saying earlier about just programming that neural system. I mean, every sport's going to be like that. I just get a sense that volleyball with their digs, sets, spike, over,
Right. And I've always, outside of football, I've always found the women's athletic sports are a little bit easier to coach than the other male sports are. Not that I don't like baseball. I work with baseball and I work with 45 guys all by myself. No, the head coach sits there. The head coach doesn't have a kinesiology degree. He doesn't say anything. He knows to stay in his line. So, but it's different energy. Not that they're bad lifters. I don't walk out of there feeling drained. I get a better sense out of the women's soccer program.
So I'm curious about that, especially, Coach, because you've got athletes of varying levels of ability, not only on the pitch or the court, but in the weight room itself. So I could see creating small groups that are going to be working with one another and maybe putting a captain in each group, or do you just
we do that? I have lift captains. So we have what's called bow crews, and each bow crew's in charge, and we try to get an experienced lifter in each group. Our weight room is not the biggest. Like I can give you a quick shot real quick. I'm gonna show you real quick. This is handles 100 people.
All right.
So it's really not the largest. I got 3 racks. and 3 GHGs and 2 functional trainers that I got to work everyone through. So it's not, a lot of my programming is based off of what do I have access to and how do I not make it a circuit? I don't want to make it a circuit. Like I try so hard not to make it this circuit. I want to move heavy loads, and how do I move fast? And how do I get it flowing through? That's, I try to tell some of these people who are personal trainers that want to be collegiate strength coaches or pro strength coaches, I want to work with these guys and I work with teams, is like, have you ever managed 50 people working in an environment where it's easy to train one person on one rack going through stuff. You can do whatever you want to do. When I'm starting a program, like how is this going to flow in the gym? It's not about what the most scientifically viable thing is, what's going to work for the time I have allotted. So
I'm imagining that not that you're doing circuits necessarily, but you've got these stations and then they just rotate through the different areas. I mean,
so like
is that how you? Yeah.
Yeah, like we'll have like an A. Okay, here's our A lift. I try to do. I'm a big Mike Boyle disciple when I train movement patterns. So I'll go vertical push, pull, knee dominant. That just works. It just works for my brain. I'm a big Mike Boyle fanboy. You'll see me like blush when he comes in the room. I do. His demeanor it just speaks to me. But I'll try my best to get the power done first in everyone's thing, so at least we're eliciting the best response there. So I'll even try to do 2 different power movements so that they can get a power movement in, and then they'll go to the different blocks of strength and they'll switch over so that we can rotate through. Some teams like basketball can get in, and the basketball programs can use this weight room pretty effectively because they're not larger programs. Like baseball and soccer takes some, finagling on how to do it in order to not make it a circuit and not just turning into moving low weights. So I've seen some college coaches doing it with a bad weight room, and it ends up being, yes, they're sweaty and they're tired, but you haven't really done anything but just make them tired.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say the disciple of Mike, Mike's obviously these days very much into unilateral or oppositional movements, contralateral action. How much do you take in to your programming with that? How much do you infiltrate in with that?
I try, so I remember his death of squatting thing, and I think everyone vilified him for it. I'm like,
oh God, yeah.
And it's one of those things that people didn't actually hear the whole thing.
Correct.
It wasn't he was saying squatting's bad. He just going, if it's your standalone, it's probably a bad choice for athletes like a hockey player or any athlete that does a lot of. And so he was saying he would much rather do like a Bulgarian squat heavy. And I'm going, well, I differ from him. I will do Bulgarian squat. I will still do a primary lift, because here's the thing is that 18 to 24-year-old athletes are ego driven and they want to see a big number move up. And even beyond performance, sometimes you have to throw them, told coaches, one of my favorite coaches, and I used to work with is Josh Hunt, out of Portland, Oregon. We say we want to give our athletes a gift of what they need in a box of what they want. So sometimes I'll throw them a bone by giving them a bilateral exercise, primary exercise, where they can move some loads. But the real meat potatoes of the program is in the unilateral Bulgarians or the iso toe flexes and things where they're actually getting a lot of bang for the buck, but they probably don't see it like that.
I'm stealing that, by the way, in case you're wondering. I'm just going to steal that gift of what they need in a box of what they want. I'm totally going there.
I heard that once before. So I actually, I grew up in the fitness world, in the corporate fitness world with True 24 Fitness back when they were a true sales force. So I think I heard it then the first time about everyone says, I want this, but we know what they want. They don't know how to okay, you want this, but this is what you really need to work on. They think they want this, but you really don't. And I even have to deal with coaches. Like, I've had coaches say, I want him to squat and bench. And I'm like, why? Why do you want a basketball player to bench? But that's what they want. So you're like, I've done it where I do my program and I know their bench is going to go up, and I'll do like a bench mid preseason. I'll do a bench test, and they all PR their bench press, and then they don't talk to me again. Hey, you're doing a great job. Like, yeah, but I'm not really working on bench. They're just getting stronger. But I know it's going to correlate to a bigger bench with them, so you leave me alone. But
what's the hardest sport right now in regards to programming for you? The most challenging?
It really is the size of the facility and the amount of athletes I have to deal with, because the way I truly like the program, like try to keep, I would love in an environment not to have no more than 4 or 5 people per group per rack, and everyone kind of rotating around for the primary block around that rack and going into supplemental auxiliary stuff after that. When I have to have people come off of the rack and then come back to it, I feel you lose focus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, with your auxiliary lifts, are we talking omnidirectional? Or are you still, yeah?
Yeah, we'll go unilateral, we'll go transverse plane, crossover. I try to add as much to movement, multiplanar movement as possible. But I won't come off that plane. Until I can see some proficiency and load go up, and then they'll change it up again. I don't need someone laterally lunging, 500 pounds. I just want to show me, can you do a load? Can you do it correctly? Can you stress that tissue?
And then your interns, your coaches with you, are you guys kind of using each movement as a screening process or assessment? I mean, how does that work? I mean, you got a lot of athletes, so
right.
How does that work? Is it your team captains or what?
I have a standardized warm up, base 4 movements that I've used it for this. I've used. And I'll give you the secret sauce. I use world's greatest stretch, Russian kick, dyno touch, lunge and reach, over hurdle, under hurdle. That's my base package. And then I'll do some skips and stuff off that. But those are the 4 things I start with. And the reason why, and I do it unilaterally through all the sports, those are the first 4, because number one, it builds culture. Everyone does the same thing in the beginning, and they're used to know it's coming and know it's going to do it for proficiency. But if I have, especially the world's greatest stretch, if you have an injury, if you have stuff going on, a dysfunction, it's very telling that they're not moving correctly. Because if I see them moving one way and then I look over, 12 weeks in, I see that doesn't look quite right, it turns into a movement screen for me right away. It's an on-the-fly movement screen. And then you can pick, okay, then why are they doing that? What's going on? Something doesn't feel right. Now, I change up the skip patterns. I'll change crawlings and do that, but it's always those 4 base ones, because it's something that my brain I can pick up by the corner of my eye. If I'm looking over another coach, another group of athletes, and I see that going on and it doesn't look right, I'll catch it, because I can't see everything at the one time. So I'm trying to bring some standardization into it. That's why I do that.
No, makes complete sense. So of the sports that you have, you got over 100 athletes. how many are water sports? Do you have water polo, swimming, diving?
I don't know aquatic sports right now. I have men's, women's soccer, men's, women's cross country, men's, women's golf. I have men's, women's soccer, baseball, softball, men's, women's basketball, and women's volleyball.
Okay, you got a lot of Rotary athletes there.
Yeah,
and does a Rotary does that carry over from one sport to the other to some degree? Like you're programming for a Rotary athlete is what I mean.
I mean, I have my tier 1 stuff, my tier 1 Rotary stuff does, like as far as my Rotary ball sends. But then as we get into, like for baseball, we're getting a little bit more overhead. You know, the pattern's a little bit different. For softball, it's similar to baseball, but the lever points with our softball athletes are a little bit shorter, so I really try to work and open their hips up. And a big issue I've noticed in my softball and my baseball players is the T-spine lack of rotation. They can't extend nor can they rotate through T-spine.
Well, these are older teenagers, early 20s, so they're just coming out of some major growth spurt where we're probably going to see a reduction in T-spine mobility. So what do you do about that?
So we spend a lot of time doing advanced mobility. We'll put the foam roller and we'll do I call the vertebrae extend out, trying to teach them how to extend out through each vertebrae. We'll work lots of ground movements, rotating through, teaching, another thing, that world's greatest stretch. When I see people just reach with their shoulder and not with their arm instead of reaching with their whole back, okay, hey, we can achieve a lot of T-spine mobility right there, or it's a good screen where I go, hey, we need to fix that. So.
And do you have soft tissue practitioners there? Do you have anybody athletic trainers or anybody?
I'm sure the strength and conditioning coaches out there. I'm a licensed manual therapist, and I'm a body tempering license. We do have athletic trainers here that, ironically, were not body tempering certified. I brought my tools in, but the AD didn't want body tempering happening in the weight room. Don't ask me why. So all my tools actually reside in the athletic training room, where I have taught the athletic trainers how to use them. Use my tools down there.
You're a very generous individual. So when you get to this one athlete that's doing world's greatest, they're not able to extend and rotate, and really you're not seeing the proper spine mechanics you're looking for. You say, hey, run down to the training room, let them work here and here, and come on back and see me, or how's it work?
Well, first thing we'll try to address it with a cross ball with some of my self stuff up here. And if they're not able to do it, then we'll try that intervention. I'm trying to let me use body tempering up here because I feel like it clogs up the athletic training room for, like, I don't feel like they should be doing preventative stuff. I should be doing the preventative stuff.
Got it.
And it's all up to athletic trainers. Different athletic trainers have different comfort levels with hands-on treatments. Some ATCs are fine letting the strength coach do it, and some are not. And that's just the level. Different programs have different protocols.
Now, I know you've got a little background in FMS because I saw your certifications too. So is that your initial screening process? Have you developed your own over the course of time? How do you determine the at-risk individuals?
Well, I got FMS a long time ago, and it was the hot thing. And I think the only screen of value in the FMS, in my opinion, is the overhead squat and maybe reach behind your shoulder. Other than that,
So you've developed things on your own, then, is what you're saying. You've taken from Peter and so on. And so what do you do?
Well, so we'll do an overhead squat. And be honest with you, what I'll do is I go, okay, squat down from the overhead squat. I kind of go back to the, I know, naughty word, but the NASM overhead squat thing. But I can see so many things just from that. Like it shows, like boom, boom, boom. Okay, I see a bunch. Just from that I can develop a basic program. And then what I do is I take them okay, we'll ask athletes, do you have any aches and pains that we should be aware of right away? Anything hurt? It's like, no, it doesn't hurt. Okay, then we're going to put you into this program. And then if we have, what we do is I think people try to make the evaluation too much of an evaluation and not a workout. It's like, we can start working them out. We can start seeing what the capacity issue is without endangering them. We're not like putting them in an issue where they're going to get hurt. Hey, let's squat. Let's see how you squat with a little bit of load. Like, I always overhead squat or goblet squat before I put a bar, and then I progress to freehand squat, front squat, into then eventually back squat. You know, obviously everyone's super, you know, why are we back squatting? Well, there's no point. You know, I want to have areas where I can show how they handle load, and then it shows me right there. Just have a good coaching eye and you write a note. Okay, I see that he's constantly going into valgus knee collapse during a squat pattern. Right knee. Okay, so let's create some correctives that doesn't happen anymore. So,
sure.
Instead of setting aside at a time, at the NC2A we only have so many hours, and we put an hour aside. Now we've wasted an hour, and people say, "We're not wasting an hour." I'm like, well, you start doing it too often, and all you're doing is assessing, and you're maybe developing correctives as opposed to being able to just be smart with your initial programming, and that can be part of your assessment process.
Makes sense to me completely. You don't waste your time. So let's just take a squat, overhead, back, front, whatever you want, goblet. I mean, this is a standing loaded position. What about carries though? What about being loaded and moving through space? How much of that do you do?
Yeah, I do a lot of loaded carries. It's kind of my go-to before we start running, because I want to see how you move, what your gait looks like, both unloaded. I mean, that's the first. I mean, I know a lot of strength coaches will not. They miss an opportunity when they watch teams come in their gym. They kind of sit in their office and wait for one. In the beginning, I at least go watch them walk in. Shirt on. Sure.
You never stop. You're always on the go. That's good. Yeah, let's hope that was a male athlete, right?
It was a male athlete.
Okay, good.
So
with the loaded carries, you do that prior to any kind of running.
Right. I want to see. Hey, let's see. You know, it's like trying to find. And I also tell these athletes sometimes this is better than running in the lower impact. We can see a lot of things, and we can see grip strength and you know, coming from a military background, people go, "Oh, I'll get better at rucking just by running." I'm like, no, nothing quite captures rucking like rucking. And that's like, you have to, if you move under load, it's completely different. So it will really expose some things. I've seen some of the greatest runners, military athletes, and they put a ruck on and things just fall apart.
Uh-huh. Yeah, very cool. Wow. You've given so much insight, so much great information. Where is this taking you? Where are you going from here? You happy with the position you're in? You're climbing up? You want somebody to replace you?
Well, the goal is to move to. I mean, I do have aspirations to go to bigger level, Division I, higher up. This is just where this situation landed me now. It could be here. I could be here for another month. I could be here for another 5 years, 10 years. Probably not 5 years. I'm trying to. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but
I hear you. But you gotta love it. I mean, a previous guest who works in the minor leagues of Major League Baseball was saying, you know, it's great to go up to the majors, but those athletes are so fine-tuned that the programming is just minutia, just minute adjustments to try and get that last % of greatness out of them, compared to, say, Division II players that are striving to go further. You've got more room for improvement. Do you find that to be the case?
I do find the case, but, you know, being a businessman, and you've ran your own, you've been a trainer for a long time too. What I have found is that we undervalue ourselves and we lose a lot of great people because they don't even realize, they don't know their own worth. And so like I work because I have two boys and a wife. I work to ensure that they're fed, they're clothed, their bills are paid, and our life is better. I am not going to sacrifice their comfort so that I can write a cool program for some minor leaguer. If a Major League Baseball team came to me and offers me $140,000 a train, or there's an opportunity at AAA at 85, I am taking the Major League job every day and twice on Sunday. It is, but you're right. I know some younger coaches that will go, no, I want to work at that. I'm like, you're ridiculous. And you may not be. Eventually what happens, it does wear on you. They think, oh, it's not about the money. It is about the money. Everyone works to make money. You know, I know we're doing it. We're lucky to coach, but find the situation where it makes you the most comfortable. People go, oh, you want to be happy. Yeah, you want to be happy too, but you also don't want to like sacrifice money to a little bit, add some comfort to your life. Yeah. And I could rant on this one all day. If I see another athletic director at the Division II or III or even one level offer a starting head coach position under the wage of $40,000, I'm going to scream and ask for a master's degree and ask for all this experience. And I'm like, I always ask ADs that do that. I've actually taken interviews knowing I have no intent of taking that in order just to like go, well, how much does your maintenance guy make? Well, they make 58. Then I want to make at least what they make, because it doesn't require a degree to do that job, and they work a hell of a lot less hours than I'm going to be working. So
well said. Yeah.
But it's because these young kids are so excited to get a job.
They'll accept peanuts.
They're perpetuating these salaries instead of just going no and making these ADs work for it. They just know they can put people in there.
Yeah.
Unless they want something special. So. And
now they're requiring master's degrees or doctorates in some of these positions, and they're not increasing the wages. So something has to change.
It's not okay. I'm like, and I'll argue the same for the ATCs to be paid more too. But like when I see at the Division I level is bad. Like when I see that you've got assistant coaches making hundreds of thousands of dollars, that they coach special teams, or they're the defensive line coach if they make $330,000. You need to lop some of that money off to even the assistants. If you have an assistant coach at Division I level, they need to be able to pay for. They should not have to worry about how rent and their groceries are going to get paid.
Redistribution of wealth within that system.
I mean, you should, because you're requiring a master's degree as the assistant, but the special teams coach is just because they're Jimbo Fisher's friend and he happens to have a bachelor's degree from Valdosta State. No offense to Valdosta State. I'm just saying it's their educational background is not as impressive as the assistant strength coach, yet you're rewarding it, and their job probably not as hard either, so.
Yeah. We could go on for sure. I know.
Oh, I go on. I just got awarded RSCCD, and even nice. And Kevin Gregory was asking me a question about like my thought, where I thought the industry was going. I'm like, we just they released that on college coaches, the SIGME, and they were talking about, well, where Eric was saying too, is like, oh, this is the average pay. And I was sitting with my good friend from Regis University, Spencer, and we're like, that's the average, because I make that, and I know I'm the highest paid person in the I know I'm one of the higher paid strength coaches in the conference because I demanded it when I got here. Like I wasn't going to take less. And I'm going, and they were saying that was the average. I'm like, so that means there's I know people making less. That also means someone's making more than that. If that's the average, who's making more?
Yeah.
So, because I don't know who you're talking about. Because that means I'm like, I can name a lot of $35,000 a year head strength coaches in Division II, I can't name a whole lot of 75.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Woo! All right. Well, Cory, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put in some links in the description where they can follow you on LinkedIn and Instagram and at Texas A&M International and so on. But I can't thank you enough. This has been really a great conversation. Appreciate you reaching out. I knew we were going to have a good conversation.
That's it for this episode of Zealous Podcast. I want to thank Cory and Texas A&M International for coming on and sharing what he has shared and then some. And also, if you're thinking of continuing education, check out the Arizona State Clinic for the NSCA. That's coming up this December 9th. I'll be presenting on applying functional anatomy to strength and conditioning. And then if you want to geek out on closed chain biomechanics and how foot wedges can improve performance, then come on to Physio X Physical Therapy outside Boston in Needham, Massachusetts, January 27th and 28th for a 2-day deep dive into how to improve performance. And we will see you next week.